When the Kalwas Gala happened, 7 new heads were chosen who were responsible for organizing the next one each time. 3 of them were responsible for the auction and were given special vaults like these that only they could open. These vaults were special because they ensured that every item that went inside and was taken outside was recorded. It was to ensure that none of the 3 chosen heads took the artifacts for themselves. Cumdon Whiteheart was given this vault, and only he could enter it. But how do we unlock this? Kai asked as he looked at the various designs on the vault. It didn't take him long to recognize the inordinate amount of runes present on this vault. Should I try to destroy these runes? He asked. If you want to notify every single Kalwas Gala's head and all the authorities behind the Gala, sure, go ahead, Asher replied. His words made Kai feel a bit embarrassed as he knew that breaching into this vault would not be easy. Asher knew the entry to this vault was given to the person who held the mana imprinting key. Each of the 3 heads was told to make their unique key by using mana on the runes on the vault. These vaults were some of the finest creations of the Artisans Association, and even an SS rank hunter would have a hard time opening this vault with brute force. For S rank hunters, it was almost impossible to even try to breach this vault. Apart from the runes present for security purposes, special runes that required a unique mana flow to open the vault were on it. A unique pattern was decided by the one responsible for this vault. But Cumdon Whiteheart was not the only one who knew about the unique mana pattern that unlocked this vault. And the only one who knew about that mana pattern besides Cumdon was Asher because he had seen Cumdon unlock this vault in front of him with his own eyes. It was something that Asher remembered quite clearly because he had attended the Kalwas Gala in his previous life when he was in his first year at World Academy. Asterisk 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 contemporary romance. The Kalwas Gala was nearing its end, with the announcement of the new 7 heads only a few days away. 2 men stood before a remarkable structure carved from a distinctive dark blue stone. So, a Greville has been chosen as one of the heads. Cumdon asked the older man standing behind him. Yes, and the seat holder of the Greville family is about to arrive, the old man responded, glancing behind him. Shortly after, Arthur Greville entered the room, accompanied by Asher, who was looking at the magnificent vault before him. This is one of the 3 vaults of the Kalwas Gala, Greville, the old man explained, mistaking that Asher was interested in the vault. Ads by Pub Future. He was one of the individuals who assisted the heads of the Kalwas Gala and managed the auction. Given his knowledge of everyone from the elite families, it wasn't surprising that he recognized Asher immediately. Pleasure to meet you, Head Greville, Cumdon Whiteheart said, looking at the pair of crimson-red eyes. From his confident demeanor, it was clear Cumdon didn't consider the Grevilles superior to him. So, he is Cumdon Whiteheart, Asher thought, observing a man who appeared to be in his 30s. Asher could see the resemblance between Kevin and Cumdon Whiteheart. However, his lack of interest in the Whiteheart family was obvious from his eyes. The pleasure is mine, Arthur returned Cumdon's greeting, though no hands were shaken. Cumdon noticed Arthur had changed significantly since their last meeting. The reason was clear to everyone. The loss of Nathaniel Greville was a devastating blow to the Greville family. So, this is your son? Cumdon asked, looking at Asher, who met his gaze. Interesting. Cumdon mused, noting Asher's lack of nervousness around him. Being among 2 SS rank hunters would make most people his age jittery, especially knowing that the heir of the Greville family had remained unawakened until he joined the World Academy. Yes, Arthur confirmed. The old man beside them felt a touch of awkwardness. He could see Arthur Greville was not in the mood for casual conversation or exchanging pleasantries like the other elite families. Let's conclude the formalities, Arthur said, turning to Cumdon. Okay. Cumdon agreed, raising his hands. Asher observed Cumdon, who manipulated his mana in a certain pattern, and soon, the vault opened. He could discern the flow of Kamdan's mana, a talent stemming from his bloodline abilities. Asher was still acclimating to his bloodline skill, and perceiving mana so vividly was one of his capabilities. You can imprint your mana now, Kamdan stepped back, addressing Arthur. I will take my leave, Kamdan announced, promptly exiting the room. Much like Arthur, Kamdan's greeting was a mere formality, an etiquette that the upper society strictly adhered to, followed by every individual in the High Council and the elite social circles. You can imprint a unique pattern that you desire, the old man suggested, turning to Arthur. Unbeknownst to everyone present, the young man standing there could see the mana imprints and the pattern both Kamdan and Arthur created. At that moment, Asher was not particularly interested, but the pattern was etched into his memory. Asterisk 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 asterisk. Currently, Asher was relying on his memory to open this vault. Kai saw Asher walk towards the vault and touch the walls of the massive vault in front of them. Subconsciously, Kai prepared for the worst-case scenario. He was unsure how Asher would open this vault, but he readied himself in case things went south. Only the fourth level was left uncleared, and Kai was confident he could eliminate the remaining rank hunters left on this level. Asher's palm touched the walls as he closed his eyes and mimicked the movements of mana that he remembered Kamdan performing in front of him once. He knew that opening this vault would consume half of his mana, but the cost was reduced due to his mana flow skill. As he expected, he needed a significant amount of mana to activate the special runes and create a specific pattern. Kai saw a bright blue light flow throughout the vault, and he noticed many runes moving toward the center of the vault, gathering around it in a circular shape. Multiple lines around the vault lit up as Asher channeled his mana to flow through them. Clank! A loud sound of metal colliding with each other echoed when Asher removed his hands. The light shone once again as all the runes lit up, and the door soon opened, revealing the vast space inside it to Asher. What a sight! Kai muttered as he saw the vault open up and unveil the massive space within. There were multiple spatial element runes painstakingly created to construct this vault. Inside, a plethora of artifacts were stored in glass cases and various mana gems that were likely S rank and above. Asher stepped in, and Kai followed behind him. At this moment, a wave of mana enveloped the entire fifth level, and a robotic voice was heard. Less than jamming device activated greater than. But Kai and Asher were too far from the source of this voice. They didn't know that their connection with Tom had been disconnected. Exactly 3 minutes ago, when Asher had entered the fifth level. Inside the fourth level, two men could be seen in conversation. Interesting, a man with blonde hair murmured to himself. I didn't notice this before, but something feels off in the air, he concluded. The man standing before him questioned his claim, considering that their security system covered all the facilities related to this underground base. Do you think I am joking? The blonde man became slightly irritated. No, sir, how could I dare think of you in such a manner, responded the team leader of the guards working in the underground base. Contemporary romance. Asher went inside the vault, observing numerous artifacts divided into various sections. Each of them was encased in glass structures. Kai frowned as he saw the glass used to encase the artifacts. How many rune masters are working for them? Kai said aloud. Each piece of glass had runes on it, distinct from those present at the entrance of the vault. Thousands, Asher replied, continuing to walk around different sections of artifacts. The vault's interior was lit with blue lights powered by various mana stones and runes. It was a self-sufficient creation, functioning almost akin to a spatial storage device. Each section was grouped by the type of artifacts placed there. None of the artifacts here were below S rank. Kai remembered their meeting when Dane asked a question while Asher explained the plan. What if we take all the artifacts? Dane proposed. Listening to Ash's idea, he thought their chances of succeeding were very high, so he obviously wanted to make the most out of it. Not possible, Asher immediately rejected the idea. The moment we break the encasing around the artifacts, an alert would be sent to everyone related to the security of the vault, Asher explained. He knew this well, listening to conversations between Arthur and the old man present when Arthur took ownership of the vault from Cumden Whiteheart. And the vault will shut down immediately after 20 seconds, Asher added, quelling any fanciful ideas in Dane's head. Currently, Asher was searching for a specific artifact he had taken all this risk for. Last time, it had fallen into Leonard's hands. Maybe even that artifact will be here. Asher wasn't sure but kept reviewing various information popping up before him. He passed by numerous artifacts that could fetch millions of ore at auction, but none of them piqued his interest. At the moment, he was in front of a special section where various unique artifacts were stored. But, these couldn't be grouped with other artifacts due to their unique shapes, differing from typical artifact forms. His wandering eyes soon stopped on a specific artifact. A metallic-looking card with an eye-shaped jewel in the center could be seen in the transparent glass casing. Found it, Asher thought, examining the information about the artifact. Ads by Pub Future. The question was, how would Asher extract this artifact, along with the other item he was after? Tom, who had been working on cracking the security system of the 4th level, finally managed to succeed. Still, the sight that met his eyes shocked him. What? His eyes widened as he almost sprang from his seat. He had just gained access to the 4th level and saw a blond man with distinctive blue eyes moving to a specific part of the 4th level. Louis Rothschild. He stuttered in shock. Why the hell is he here? He couldn't believe what Louis Rothschild was doing there. But he didn't know that James Rothschild had sent Louis himself, so he could stay at the underground facility to help Cumden Whiteheart. James knew that the S-rank hunters of the Whiteheart family were working on a recently formed special dungeon. The other reason was to ensure that Louis stayed in a place away from people. Known as the Mad Dog of the Rothschild family, he had earned this nickname due to the trouble he caused wherever he went. I need to inform the boss about it. Tom immediately tried to contact Asher and Kai. Less than access denied greater than. What? Tom didn't understand what happened but concluded that Louis Rothschild had somehow taken control of the 5th level. Unsure of what to do, he immediately began to investigate the matter. But first, he needed to inform Asher and Kai about this. They were still inside the 5th level, unaware that Louis Rothschild had already sensed something wrong. No, I need to do something, Tom panicked. Louis Rothschild was said to have achieved S+ rank, and Tom was sure that even Dane and Kai together wouldn't be enough to take on Louis Rothschild. I need to get him out of here, Tom muttered as he kept looking for ways around the problem. Inside the 4th level a minute ago. I will activate the security protocol, Louis said with a serious look. What? The team leader asked, confused. Try to use your mana, idiot, Louis retorted, clearly irritated. The team leader of the guards used his mana, but something felt extremely wrong with his mana control. How? He was confused as he looked toward Louis. Activate the security protocol, Louis repeated. This time the team leader immediately nodded, pressing something on the bracelet he wore on his right wrist. It was connected to the system they were using on the 4th level. Connect me to the other levels and contact the teams positioned there, Louis instructed as he turned. My access was denied, the team leader reported slowly. His face was horrified, and he immediately tried to use his team's communications. Team A1. He asked, but no reply came. Louis's face turned serious as he realized something had gone wrong. Check which level the protocol was implemented on. Louis shouted at the team leader, who was nearly shaken by the amount of pressure Louis was exerting. He clicked his bracelet, and a holographic 3D map of the underground facility emerged. All levels, Except the fourth and fifth were red. No way, the team leader muttered. He was only here to build connections with the famous Louis Rothschild, but he hadn't expected this. Where is the footage of the fifth level? Louis immediately asked. In the management room, where we uploaded the system you wanted to implement on this level, he replied. Louis knew the direction of the room, so he turned and immediately headed toward it. He held his breath, knowing the air was laced with an unknown drug. Although it wasn't that effective on an S+ rank hunter like him, he didn't want to take any risks regarding this. While Louis was going to review the current footage, Asher found the second artifact he hadn't expected to see here. So this was here as well, Asher thought, examining a necklace-type artifact. He remembered this artifact very well. But, unfortunately, it wasn't as powerful or useful as the artifact he initially came for. He didn't need it, but he decided to take it anyway. It was closely connected to the incident that had completely changed Asher. I have planted it, Kai said to Asher as he returned to the vault. So, how are we going to take them out? Kai asked, still unsure of the method Asher intended to use. Let's go outside first, Asher replied. They left the vault, but Kai was still eager to learn how Asher would deal with the runes. Asher walked around the vault, touching one of the lines of runes on the corner. Second time, Asher thought to himself. Only once in his previous life had this vault been breached, and his organization had done it. But the scale of that heist was much larger than the current one. At this moment, he didn't know about Louis Rothschild's presence, and Louis didn't know about Asher's existence on the fifth level either. But both of them were about to meet soon. And now, Tom was panicking quite a bit, as encountering Louis was a guaranteed death sentence for them. As Asher traced the runic lines along the vault, he searched for where the spatial runes were connected. He sought the structure of the runes that triggered the alarm, the one that was connected to the vault itself. Unless the vault was opened, it remained concealed. In his previous life, this rune was discovered by Tom, who studied the vault structure for years on end. Although Asher remembered how Tom had done it, he still lacked the knowledge to comprehend such complex runes. With his current understanding, it was impossible for him to deactivate the entire system, but he could isolate a few elements. That was what he intended to do. Step back a bit, Asher told Kai. Asher studied the runes scattered all around the vault. Their complex combinations formed a high-level security system nearly impossible to breach. However, Asher knew a way, contemporary romance. Every rune structure like this had multiple focal points where the structural integrity was weakest. But no one could detect these faults in something like this vault because it was designed to minimize these focal points. Only the creator could know these focal points, but even they could make mistakes leading to creating such focal points. Finding these focal points could have taken years, but Asher already knew about them. As Asher traced the lines of the runes, he recognized a familiar formation. This should do it, Asher said. When I say go, retrieve those two artifacts, Asher instructed Kai, who nodded in response. You will have exactly 4.5 seconds before the runic formation reverts to normal, he said. And after that, the vault will remain closed for 24 hours, Asher said. Listening to Asher's instructions, Kai harnessed all his mana, increasing his focus to his maximum. Of course, it would have been better if Dane were here, but reaching the fifth level this easily was impossible without Kai. I'm ready, Kai announced, his eyes fixated on the two artifacts Asher had indicated. He took a deep breath and waited for Asher's cue. Meanwhile, Asher was coating his finger with an aura and concentrating it on one spot. It was the focal point where the mana stream of the runes was at its weakest. He took his index finger and touched the runic lines, attempting to disconnect them. If an S rank or above hunter were here, Asher could have seized every single artifact, but that was not the case. So, he chose to tamper with the runic lines, giving Kai just enough time to bring the artifacts outside. Suddenly, the blue lines around the vault turned a pale yellow. Kai saw the platform where the artifacts were located glow red. He didn't understand what Asher had done but was awaiting the signal to proceed. Go, Asher said loud enough. Boom! A sound of a small blast echoed as Kai used a substantial amount of mana to enter the vault. 4. He reached the first artifact, which resembled a card. He immediately snatched it up and spun around. 3. Ads by Pub Future. He propelled himself towards the second artifact, sensing the vault doors beginning to close. 2. Upon reaching the area of the second artifact he needed, he swiftly seized the necklace-like artifact, then turned to see the revolving door closing. Shit, Kai realized he didn't have much time left. He exerted all his strength into his legs, leaping towards the entrance. 1. He was almost at the entrance but only had 1.4 seconds left, so he extended his hand behind his back. Fire Blast, he cast the spell behind him. It was the final push he needed, but his entire back would have been burnt if he hadn't been wearing the armor that Asher had provided. Clang! The vault closed, and Asher removed his finger from the rune formation, noticing blood dripping from his finger. His gaze fell on Kai, who had crashed against the walls of the 5th level. Kai coughed a couple of times as he took a deep breath. He stood up after a few seconds, looking at the now closed vault. Despite this, he had secured the 2 artifacts that Asher needed. Asher walked towards him, checking the information on the 2 artifacts. They were the correct ones. Here, Kai said, standing up and handing the artifacts to Asher. Asher put both artifacts in his spatial ring. They still needed to exit the facility, but Asher wanted to reach level 30 before returning to World Academy. Is your work done? Asher asked Tom, but no response came. Tom, Asher repeated but still got no reply. It didn't take him long to figure out what might have happened, and his eyes fell on the path where the entrance that connected the 4th and 5th level was located. You can use your ability, right? Asher asked, but his eyes were fixed on the entrance. Yeah, Kai replied, but he still didn't understand what had happened. Use it. We will move to the 4th level, Asher said as he looked around. Kai looked around, and he could feel a force field. It didn't take him long to identify what this was. A high-grade mana jamming device that could block all sorts of connections coming into the 5th level. But even more problematic was that this device made most artifacts useless for a short time. Kai immediately used his ability to hide his and Asher's presence as they headed toward the entrance of the 4th level. And Louis Rothschild saw the figures of 2 masked men in the footage he was looking at. How did they get there? He shouted in rage. But what was even more shocking, they had opened the vault that only Camden Whiteheart could open. The footage was before they activated the device, so Louis still didn't know about Kai's ability because he had activated the jamming device. From the mana readings we have detected, they are below S rank, a person said. Lock the 4th level and open the entrance of the 5th level, Louis shouted at the team in the 4th level. As you wish, they replied, but the team leader was unsure. But we need Master Camden's spur, he said something when Louis grabbed his neck and slammed him against the wall. I am in charge here, not you, bastard. Louis looked at the man who was struggling in his grip. He released his grip as the team leader started coughing. Forgive me, he said. He had forgotten that Louis Rothschild didn't behave like other people from elite families that greatly cared about their image. The entrance will open in 1 minute, one of the people working in the management room said to Louis. We have locked the 4th level, and nobody will be able to leave, he continued. How long will the jamming device work? Louis asked again. For 1 minute, we can block all the communication inside the 5th level, but its effectiveness will drop significantly after that, so maximum 2 minutes, the man replied respectfully. Enough time for me to kill them, Louis said as he left the room and headed towards the entrance of the 5th level. Louis didn't know how the intruders had opened the vault, but he would kill them. James had clearly told him not to make a mistake while being present here. The Kalwas Gala was around the corner, and this was a big event for the Whitehart family. But something unexpected happened in the management room. Someone is trying to take over the security system, a guy said as they got multiple alerts on their screens. In the abandoned building. This should be enough time for me to warn them. Tom knew that taking over the entire fourth level would take too much time. So he decided to gain access to a small pseudo-level between the fourth and fifth levels. He needed to delay Louis Rothschild somehow and warn Asher and Kai simultaneously. It's do or die. Tom decided to risk it all. Asterisk 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 asterisk. At the fifth level, Asher saw the entrance to the fourth level open in front of him. The entrances to the fourth and fifth levels were not directly connected. In the middle was a space filled with various security devices. It was neither part of the fourth nor the fifth level. Less than BB, SSSR, greater than. They heard a glitching voice. Less than low, child greater than. Those were the last words they heard from Tom before the connection was cut off. Low child. Kai didn't understand what Tom was trying to convey. Louis Rothschild, Asher said as he spread his mana sense. And he sensed a powerful S+ rank hunter coming towards them. Kai's face completely changed when he heard the name. No way, he tried to deny the possibility, but sensing a powerful presence ahead of them, he knew that Asher was correct. This arc had extended a bit more than required and I have taken all the suggestions so I will improve on my writing skills. In the management room, the attacks have stopped, one of the men announced as the alerts ceased. Don't grow complacent now. What's the status of our hunter team? A man in a suit inquired. They reached the third level before we locked down the fourth level, the man replied. Upon hearing that the security system had been compromised, Louis Rothschild's initial response was to dispatch his team of rank hunters from the Rothschild family to the upper levels. Try to establish communication with them. Can we contact the outside world? He asked. Not until we regain control of the first level, the man responded, shaking his head. Although Camden appreciated that James Rothschild had sent Louis Rothschild himself, he was not prepared to cede them too much authority in his territory. This was why only the fourth level was under their control. To contact anyone, they had to go through the main security system, which was currently under Tom's control. Control would remain with Tom until Dane could prevent anyone from entering the security room on the first level. For this reason, over 10 rank hunters were advancing towards the first level. So, you are saying that I need to eliminate 10 rank hunters, right? Dane asked, stretching his hands. Less than no, just delay them enough so I can devise a way to assist them, greater than Tom replied hastily. He knew that asking Dane to combat 10 rank hunters was not a feasible choice. This time, the enemy was prepared and even drugged, increasing their chances of overcoming Dane. It won't work. Louis Rothschild is not someone they can defeat, Dane stated, rising from his seat. Working in Spider had provided Dane with extensive information about individuals like Louis, and he was certain that Kai wouldn't be able to handle him. I'll try to get there myself, Dane proposed. Less than but we can't let them control the security room, greater than contemporary romance. Just inform me of their locations, Dane requested. After a silent 5 seconds, Tom finally confirmed. Less than okay, proceed. Greater than. Dane smirked, gripping his sword. He was growing bored sitting idle while watching Asher and Kai eliminate every guard. On the fifth level, what should we do? Kai questioned. We move forward, Asher decided. But, Kai began, but then he glanced behind them. With the vault at their rear, they had no option to retreat. If an S+ rank hunter engaged in combat here, they would quickly be defeated. Ads by Pub Future. Asher led the way, taking the stairs to the pseudo level and surveying the surroundings. Locate the mana source, he commanded. Realizing that this was the pseudo-flow, he knew that Tom would soon be able to seize control, even if he couldn't manage it for the 4th level. However, a jamming device was currently hindering him. They dashed towards the right side, where Asher could sense the mana field originating. If the source of the jamming device was there, its source would not be far away either. It didn't take him long to arrive at the special room filled with mana stones that were being used to generate the entire pseudo level. This was a pseudo level, so the power source could be reached, unlike other levels where it was sealed. The purpose of this level was simply to bridge a gap between the 4th and 5th level. Which one is the correct one? Kai muttered as he examined various connections. Kai was in a hurry because they could encounter Louis Rothschild at any moment, and he was certain that Louis Rothschild would be able to detect their presence. Move, Asher said, and Kai stepped back. Asher observed the complex connections in front of him. They could destroy the whole thing, but doing so would eliminate all the power of this level. However, one of the mana stones glowed, and they could sense that the jamming field had become slightly weaker. Less than, greater than. Still, they could neither hear Tom nor use their artifacts. The effects of the previous jamming field would linger for some time. Is it this one? Kai asked. Yeah, Asher said as he lifted his sword. He coated his sword with aura and struck against one single point in the power source. Sparks were generated as his sword hit a single mana crystal. Destroying the mana crystal would result in an explosion due to the property of the mana crystal, so Asher only made a small crack in it, just enough to lower the mana level of the crystal. Let's move, Asher said as he prepared to leave the room. But at this moment, they heard a robotic voice. Less than 4th level entrance opened. Greater than Louis Rothschild was here, and Kai prepared himself, taking a deep breath. Although the pseudo-flow was still large enough that it would take some time for Louis to find them. Which path should we take? Kai asked. Asher recalled the blueprint of the entire underground facility. He formed a plan, but it was risky. Still, it was their only chance of getting out alive. The plan relied heavily on Tom and his abilities. He was certain that Tom still had access to the upper levels and that Dane would be descending soon. Dane and Kai were strong, but not enough to stand against Louis Rothschild. It didn't matter whether Dane could reach here or not. Asher opened the holographic map on his device, showing Kai their next destination. We will move here, Asher said. But we will get blocked here, Kai replied. And it was true, he was not wrong in his assumptions. Just follow me, Asher said. Trusting Asher's judgment so far, Kai decided to blindly follow him. They left the room and headed towards the destination Asher had indicated. It took them 30 seconds to reach their current position. Less than, greater than. Kai heard a noise in his ear. Less than boss, greater than. Less than I have gained access over this place. Greater than. Asher looked at the entrance on the opposite side of where they were standing. You remember what I mentioned about this level, right? Asher asked. Less than yes, I can activate it now. Greater than. Less than better, I know what I am doing, Asher interrupted Tom. Getting confirmation from Tom was enough. He didn't have time to explain his intentions. Ready your strongest attack, Asher said, looking at Kai. And make sure it doesn't miss. Asher turned his head as he sensed the presence of the S+ rank hunter growing stronger. Kai calmed his nerves as he began to chant. Great fire, born of earth. Kai closed his eyes, needing a bit of time to prepare. After 10 seconds, Asher looked at the entrance opposite them. Step, step, step. He could hear the footsteps of a man. His senses were at their peak. Asher watched a man in a white suit emerge from the entrance in front of him. Not here, huh? Louis Rothschild said as he looked around. The drug hadn't completely affected him, but his senses were a bit duller, so he couldn't detect Kai and Asher's presence 100 meters ahead of him. The large empty space between them started to shrink as Louis Rothschild moved towards Kai, who was completing the final chant of his spell. Louis Rothschild was moving when he stopped and raised his hand, intercepting a dagger that came from his right side. What a pest! He immediately destroyed the dagger. He flared his mana, extending his senses to his right, but the man who had attacked had moved. Interesting ability, but Louis smiled as he coated his fist with mana. You can't run from me. He slammed his fist to the ground, sending out a wave of mana. Asher was soon caught up in the mana wave, and Louis looked to his right side, spotting his hidden prey. But just then, as Louis focused on Asher, a giant vortex of fire emerged underneath him. Firestorm Ferine, Kai said. When Asher noticed Louis entering, he immediately moved around the room, took out a dagger, and threw it at the back of his head. He knew that Louis would easily sense his attack as he was entirely different from the A-rank hunters he had dealt with until now. The moment he saw Louis grab the dagger, Asher immediately used his movement technique and changed his position. Asher's cold gaze fell on Louis, who was about to slam his fist on the ground, and he immediately braced himself for the impact. Wrapping his body in his aura, Asher tried to shield himself from a single wave of mana that emanated from Louis. But his position was revealed when Louis sensed the presence of a person to his left side. The moment he turned his face to look in Asher's direction, Kai had completed his chant. Firestorm Ferine, Kai said, raising his hands above his head. The air around him heated up as his eyes focused on the target in front of him. A giant vortex of fire emerged where Louis was standing, and his body got enveloped in the massive firestorm revolving around him. Due to the fact that Kai had used all his focus to conceal the spell as much as possible, and because of the effects of a drug, Louis noticed the spell a second too late and got caught up in it. Boom! An explosion happened due to the sheer power of the spell as Kai looked at the firestorm in front of him. Flame cage, Kai said, bringing his hands down and causing the vortex of fire to start descending to the ground. It formed a cylindrical cage around Louis, and the temperature inside the vortex increased even further. Huff, 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 Kai almost collapsed, as the spell had drained a lot of energy from him. And due to this, his unique ability was lifted, and both Asher and Kai became visible again. Asher's black mask shimmered as it reflected the light coming from the enormous vortex of fire that had just engulfed Louis Rothschild. However, Asher immediately looked around as he noticed the ceiling above the large open space in which they were standing. He could see that the blue lines on the ceiling had already started to glow. Asher lowered his gaze to the center of the firestorm. Unlike Kai, who was waiting to see how much damage his spell had caused, Asher already knew the outcome. Each rank progression creates a considerable difference between the two different ranks, due to the presence of additional mana rings around one's mana core. Kai controlled his breathing as he stared at the firestorm. Even Kai knew that the spell alone would not harm Louis Rothschild. Do you think this meager spell would work on me? A voice echoed, causing Kai to frown. In an instant, a heavy pressure filled the room, and fortunately, Asher had already stepped back far from the firestorm, so he didn't bear the brunt of Louis's power. A blue light emerged from the firestorm as another explosion occurred, and this time a man wearing dark blue armor could be seen stepping out of the firestorm. Ads by Pub Future. Louis's suit was burnt, but his armor had activated, so he was completely unharmed. Is that all you've got? Louis asked, dusting the ashes from his shoulder. Louis's eyes fell on Kai and Asher, both wearing black masks, their identities unknown. It wasn't hard for him to guess that the mage was around A+ rank, and the other was B rank or below. Asher unsheathed his sword and Kai gathered his mana once again. Before I kill you, who helped you enter here? Louis asked. And how the hell did you open the vault? Louis took a step, increasing the pressure in the room. He wanted to know how these two masked men had managed to not only infiltrate this underground facility but also unlock the vault, one of the greatest creations of the Artisans Association. The pressure made it hard for Kai to stand properly, but he was still standing. Unlike Kai who was standing on his own, Asher had to slam his sword in the ground and use it as support. Less than done, greater than. Asher heard Tom's voice as his eyes turned to the ceiling. He could see all the blue lines up there forming special interconnected patterns. Louis, who was about to take another step, halted as various metal rods came his way, attempting to trap him. His face turned into a frown as he immediately dodged all the attacks. The speed was not so high that Louis would have much trouble avoiding them, but the attacks served as a distraction. Less than initiating lockdown, threat detected greater than. Louis heard a robotic voice, and before he could even react, various walls that were part of the security system protecting the vault slammed down all around him, forming a cage. What? Kai was surprised, his eyes taking in the sight in front of them. Now move, Asher said as he dashed towards the entrance of the 4th level. It was the same entrance that Louis Rothschild, who was currently trapped, had entered from. What happened? Kai asked Asher as they were running towards the 4th level entrance. That's the purpose of that level, Asher replied. That level was the last stronghold of this facility, designed to stop any intruders and to isolate the vault from the 4th level. Then the vault? Kai asked. Sealed, Asher said, but it wasn't entirely accurate. Rather, there had been a shift in the coordinates where the 5th level was located, and the security protocol that Tom had initiated made it so that the 5th level became inaccessible for anyone who came from the 4th level. Unless someone used the direct portal that only Camden Whiteheart should have been able to use, entry to the 5th level was impossible for now. Less than I have sent you the blueprint of the 4th level greater than. Less than if you can just take control over the management room present on this level, I can open the 4th level greater than. Tom told them as they almost reached the entrance of the 4th level. Less than it. Greater than. As soon as they entered the vicinity of the 4th level, their communication was cut off. At the abandoned building. Shit, Tom muttered. He wanted to ask Asher something, but the communication had been cut. He still didn't know what Asher was planning, and leaving the 4th level in time was currently their only option. It should hold, right? Tom looked at the massive metal gate that was containing Louis Rothschild. His eyes shifted towards Dane when he saw that. He was going to meet the A-rank hunters team soon. Be careful, there are 6 hunters and you will meet them in 5 minutes. Tom warned Dane, who was moving at top speed. Less than don't worry, I will finish this soon greater than. Tom heard Dane's reply, but he was still growing anxious. Louis Rothschild's presence was something they hadn't expected. If another S-rank hunter instead of Louis was here, the situation would have been a bit better. Not only had the Rothschilds brought their best hunters, but due to Louis's status, it was far easier for him to command all of them. And without them, Tom would have had no problem taking over the 4th level. Inside the metal cage, Louis touched the cage, gauging the strength needed to break out. Raising his fist, Louis coated it with S+ rank mana and slammed his fist into the metal cage. Boom! An explosion sounded, audible even to Kai and Asher who were nearly at the entrance of the 4th level. Shit, Kai thought to himself as he heard the sound. He knew what would happen if even one of those fists hit him. The sound alone let him imagine how powerful Louis Rothschild truly was. Keep moving, Asher said to Kai, contemporary romance. Unlike Kai, who was growing anxious, Asher remained calm. Yeah, Kai replied as he shifted his focus from Louis. They still had a chance to escape, and with this thought, Kai nurtured a sense of hope that they could make it out alive. Less than cage damage, 98% greater than. Tom saw the numbers detailing the damage received by the device that was keeping Louis Rothschild confined. What kind of monster is this? Tom exclaimed. The damage from Louis's single punch was enough to drain the mana level of the cage. Unlike regular metal, this cage was crafted from metal that was being charged by the mana stones present on the pseudo level. And it operated on the principle of a special barrier that would last until the mana stones were completely depleted. But looking at the numbers in front of him, things were not looking good for them. Meanwhile, Dane stood over the bodies of two A-rank hunters as he drove his sword into the heart of the third. "Come on, I'm running late, let me go already," Dane said, smiling as he finished off the third hunter. 2 minutes ago, taking the path Tom had given him, Dane traveled through the second level, holding nothing back. Unlike Kai and Asher, who didn't expose their mana while descending, Dane let his mana flow freely. "Let's start this," Dane muttered, gripping his sword. He sensed the presence of multiple A-rank hunters ahead. Although he yearned to bypass them and directly reach Kai and Asher, he couldn't ignore the probability of these hunters reaching the first level and regaining control over the security system. If there was something they needed to avoid in their already doomed situation, it was losing control over the security system. The potential reinforcements were limitless in Desmar. Almost all elite families were essentially invincible within their respective continents. "Damn it, my mana control is a mess," a mage among the team of hunters complained. "Shut up, we're all suffering," another replied tersely. None of them anticipated encountering any enemy here. Their senses were also affected by inhaling the drug present in the air, a shock for them since A-rank hunters possessed a robust immunity system. "Remember, Sir Louis will not appreciate further delays," the lead hunter said. Hearing Louis's name, they all fell silent, and the argument ceased. They recalled Louis's instructions and his clear directive to complete this job as quickly as possible. "We've reached the second level," the lead hunter announced as they entered the second level. "Let's maintain the pace and be careful," his voice halted as a sword pierced his chest. "Whoa, you need to stop right here," Dane said, withdrawing his sword as the remaining 9 hunters halted. "No," one of them bellowed as they witnessed the hunter's death. He rushed toward Dane, dagger in hand. However, it was easy for Dane, who was unaffected by the drug, to evade the attack. Instead of dodging, Dane ducked, positioning his sword upward. Instantly, he leaped toward the hunter, killing him as his sword slashed through his neck. 8 more. Dane smirked beneath his mask, his sword dripping with blood. Dane flared his mana and appeared behind the closest mage. "Save Jack," a spear-wielding hunter shouted, but it was too late. Dane kicked the mage, separating him from the rest of the hunters. In a fight with multiple opponents, mages were the most formidable enemies. Not knowing their specialized spells could pose a problem for Dane. But, as a professional contract killer for Spider, he knew how to manage situations like these. The mage used a mana barrier to mitigate the damage, but it was futile as Dane relentlessly drove his sword into his heart, killing him instantly. "Come on, I'm running late. Let me pass," Dane said, smirking under his mask. But as he spoke, multiple whines erupted from the ground. Ads by Pub Future. Dane swiftly backstepped as the whines smashed the area where he'd been standing. "Come on, they were your friends," Dane taunted the mage. He was skilled at manipulating others' emotions during fights, and his personality played a significant part. Unless Dane felt a threat from someone, he wouldn't even consider losing to them. And right now, none of the hunters before him induced such a sense of danger. "Shut up, you murderer," the mage yelled, casting another spell. It was an earth-based spell, with spikes emerging from the floor. Dane dodged the spikes while simultaneously spotting a spear flying his way. Dane dipped his upper body and used the hilt of his sword to strike the wrist of the hunter. The force nearly broke the hunter's wrist. Physically, Dane was stronger than all of them. He was at the peak of A rank, and none of them matched his strength. Their only advantage lay in their numbers, but the drug had not only weakened them but also thrown off their timing. Dane knew that fighting this way would be time-consuming, a luxury he couldn't afford. He slashed the spearman's body, contemporary romance. He coated his sword with aura, using the walls around him as springboards to launch various attacks from all directions. His attacks were swift and precise, and even if they raised their guard, it was impossible for them to completely counter Dane's onslaught. His current speed was too much for the A-rank hunters, who couldn't anticipate where the next attack would come from. One of them pulled out an artifact. Dane's eyes locked onto it, and he immediately changed his stance to propel himself towards the man. Slash. That's not fair, Dane said, pulling his sword from the hunter's body. But as he prepared to move, another hunter charged at him, sword in hand. Meanwhile, Asher and Kai were advancing in the 4th level. The team in the management room was oblivious to their presence. Using the jamming device rendered the cameras around the entrance of the 5th level useless. Knowing that Louis Rothschild himself had gone to deal with the invaders, they were all focused on regaining control over the security system. I will take the lead, Kai said as he moved ahead of Asher. He couldn't use his ability now, so protecting Asher became his priority. Asher remained silent as Kai moved slightly ahead. Their priority was the management room and regaining control over it before Louis Rothschild broke out. They navigated through multiple hallways and various inactive security devices, currently disabled due to the still active jamming device. But they halted upon encountering a man in front of them. "How did you guys get past Sir Louis?" the team leader asked, confused as he saw them. Knowing that Louis himself had proceeded to apprehend the intruders, their presence here didn't make sense. How did you escape?" The team leader became slightly nervous around them. In his mind, the only way they could have bypassed Louis was by killing him. This assumption amplified his fear. "Handle him," Asher instructed Kai, veering off his course. "Okay." Kai instantly agreed, aware that eliminating this man with his already low mana would be time-consuming. The team leader wanted to flee, but he understood that if he did, he would fall at the hands of the Whiteheart family. As the person in charge of the underground facility, until the S-rank hunters returned, he knew the consequences of not confronting Kai right now. Girding himself, he activated his unstable mana. Then, he drew out a hammer and hoisted it over his shoulders. Kai observed the man before him as he channeled a spell into his hands. This will be tough, he acknowledged that defeating the man before him would be challenging due to the strain on his mana meridians. And the artifacts he had been using to enhance the flow and control over his mana remained ineffective due to the high-grade jamming device. On the other hand, Asher was heading toward the management room. Although there was a possibility of another A-rank hunter being present besides the one they had encountered, knowing Louis's character, he was confident they would have already been dispatched to the 1st level. He knew Louis Rothschild was impatient, and his aggressive temperament made him a poor leader. With this knowledge, he was confident that no A-rank hunter would be in the management room apart from the staff. And he was right. At his destination, the management room, only D-rank individuals, and a single C-rank person were present. Getting past multiple rooms and hallways, it took Asher 30 seconds to arrive in front of what seemed like the management room. Taking his sword out once again, Asher spread his mana sense and he could see 7 people inside the room. Asterisk 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 asterisk. Meanwhile, at the Whiteheart family mansion, Cumden Whiteheart was seated opposite a certain individual as they discussed something. "So, are the dates for the gala finalized?" Cumden inquired as he took a sip from the cup in his hand. "Almost, but we will be moving out the vaults this week," the elderly man opposite Cumden replied. "But I am here for another purpose," the old man declared. "We were considering granting you the privilege to inaugurate the gala this time among the 7 heads," the old man disclosed. His words prompted Cumden to raise his eyebrows, as it was a significant honor to open the gala. Cumden was somewhat thrilled by this news, but he concealed it. "Well, that would be an honor," he replied, maintaining his composure. "But why would you not choose the Hargrave family over us?" Cumden queried. "Well, it's due to Lady Cassie of the Hargrave family," the old man responded. Cumden recognized whom the old man opposite him was referring to. the younger sister of the family head of the Hargrave family who had turned 30 this year, but he didn't understand what the issue was. But what's the reason? He probed. That I can't disclose, the old man replied with a smile and shook his head. He couldn't inform Camden that the reason they were not choosing the Hargrave family was because the family head of the Hargrave family himself had requested it. He himself was unaware of the motive behind the sudden alteration, but he had a few speculations. The old man soon rose, and Camden followed suit. This is the seal for the vault. We will initiate the process for teleportation at the end of this week, the old man stated. Knock. Inside the management room, a knock sounded on the door. Did that guy come back? One of the staff stood up and used his card to open the room. The team leader, who had just left a few minutes ago, was assumed to have returned. The thought of an enemy knocking on the room didn't even cross their minds considering that Louis Rothschild himself had gone to catch the intruders. Less than access permitted greater than. The door soon opened, and the staff member turned to go back to his seat. But he stopped, dropped the card in his hand, and looked down to see a black blade protruding from his chest. Drop. What? A man shouted as he saw a masked man come inside the room while their colleague was killed in front of their eyes. Host has gained 500 express. Asher ignored the notification as he looked at the C-rank hunter, staring his way in disbelief. Damn it, kill him, the man in the suit shouted as several staff members stood up to attack Asher. However, most of them were D-rank hunters, and almost all of them couldn't even channel their mana properly. Moreover, unlike the A-rank hunters, the side effects of the drug in the air were much worse for them. It wasn't difficult for Asher to fight multiple weakened D-rank hunters. But he wanted to avoid any possibility of damaging the management room with any random attacks. Mere steps, Asher used his movement technique. With a burst of mana, he dashed away from the hunters and reached the mage, who had just stood up and was chanting a spell. Swift strike, his sword moved, forming an arc around the mage's neck. Host has gained 500 express. Die. One of them swung a spear at Asher, but he was too slow. Asher sidestepped and raised his leg to lock the spear on the ground. The hunter looked at him in horror as he saw the black sword drive into his throat, killing him. Host has gained 500 express. Go together. The man in the suit shouted, but the space around them wasn't enough. Asher was more agile than them, and their surroundings made it harder for them to attack together. But two of them pulled out their daggers as they approached Asher, who looked at them and backstepped to dodge the first attack. Then he dashed forward, breaking the second man's attack. He slashed his sword through the second man's chest, rotated his body, and thrust the sword into the first man's heart. Host has gained 500 express. Ads by Pub Future. Host has gained 500 express. Seeing their comrades die at the hands of Asher, they rushed at him in the heat of the moment, but it was a futile struggle. Asher used his movement technique, disappeared from his spot, and appeared in the middle of the people rushing at him. He could see multiple nodes through his eyes, and his sword flowed through them, killing multiple D-rank hunters simultaneously. Host has gained 500 express. 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 Damn it, move. The man in the suit brought out a strange claw-type weapon and rushed toward Asher. He pushed the man, who was too scared to move right now. He dashed towards Asher, striking down with his weapon. However, Asher sidestepped and dodged the attack. Asher raised his sword, but the C-rank hunter backstepped, realizing the masked man before him was dangerous. He charged once again, this time utilizing the scant amount of aura he could muster. His expression altered as he saw Asher directly block his weapon with his sword. Clang! The man tried his best to overpower Asher, but Asher swung his sword in a circular motion, the blade grazing the edge of his throat, killing him shortly after the attack. Host has gained 5000 express. Asher raised his sword towards the other man in the room. Ah! The man tried to speak but found no words. Fear had seized his mind, and he could not formulate a response. Sit and open your security system, Asher commanded. The man hesitated momentarily, but understanding his imminent death, he followed Asher's orders. Open it, Asher repeated. The man promptly opened the security system while Asher surveyed the various permissions. Move, Asher commanded, and the man shifted behind him. Asher started fiddling with the settings, aiming to allow Tom the chance to take over the system. He was absorbing all the information he saw, using it to break the security system. The man standing behind Asher could understand his intent. However, he knew that even if he aided Asher, he might still die at the hands of Louis Rothschild. This realization made him shudder, his hands shaking. Seeing Asher's exposed back, he thought he might defeat Asher, believing that Asher had dropped his guard. Consequently, the man summoned his sword. Just as he was about to close in on Asher, he saw a black blade lunging toward his chest, impaling his heart. How? The man collapsed. Host has gained 500 express. He did not know that Asher's sword art permitted him to attack from at any angle from his initial position. Let's disable this first, Asher declared. It didn't take him long to locate the control of the jamming device, which he then disabled. Less than boss, can you hear me? Greater than, Tom inquired, sensing that his connection with Asher and Kai had been re-established. Yes, what else do you need to take over this flow? Asher queried, contemporary romance. Less than you should find a data piece connected to the main system in the middle somewhere. Greater than less than just remove it, and I can do the rest quickly. Greater than. Asher rose from his seat and moved towards where the C-rank hunter had been standing. Just by observing his surroundings, he was able to discern the location of the data piece and retrieve it. He removed the data piece and stored it in his spatial ring. Less than it will take 2 minutes to take over the 4th level. Greater than. When will the metal cage break? Asher asked. Before going forward with his plan, Asher wanted to know how long they could hold Louis Rothschild there. Tom relayed information about the damage the metal cage had sustained thus far. Inside the metal cage, Louis observed various spots he had pounded, his patience waning. He intensified the mana in his fists, striking the metal cage again. His mana clashed with the barrier, and intense sparks could be seen. Every single impact of his fist made a loud sound. Bam! Less than cage integrity, 58% greater than. His fists relentlessly hammered the metal cage surrounding him. Louis did not pause, knowing that the intruder's chances of escape were increasing. Even though he had already dispatched his team of hunters to the 1st level, he was desperate to break free from the metal cage. Bam! Less than cage integrity, 53% greater than. Tom watched as the damage figures rapidly decreased, Louis Rothschild nearing the moment when the metal cage would fail. Less than cage integrity, 48% greater than. Less than cage integrity, 44% greater than. We need more time, damn it, Tom exclaimed, monitoring the health. Less than cage integrity, 41% greater than. Taking over the 4th level would take him approximately 2 minutes, but he predicted that Louis Rothschild would escape the metal cage in less than a minute. Currently, he was accessing the cameras on the 4th level and saw Kai struggling somewhat with an A-rank hunter. Aware of Kai's situation, Tom opened his communication line to Dane. You're finished, right? He queried Dane. Less than. Yeah, greater than. Tom heard the scream of a man in the background as Dane replied. Proceed to the 4th level, Tom instructed. Dane had already killed 8 hunters, with only 2 remaining. However, both of them were injured due to Dane's previous attacks, contemporary romance. Shit, how is he so strong? One of them thought. Despite losing 8 of their teammates, the 2 managed to injure Dane slightly. He got a few cuts previously on his shoulders and back while trying to simultaneously dodge and counter multiple people. They had expected Dane to become more reserved in his attacks after he'd been injured, but his tempo never changed. Unlike Kai, who had a unique ability making him a valuable asset, Dane's talent lay in fighting in such situations. Even though he was at the peak of A rank, multiple artifacts Asher had given him had significantly boosted his strength. Chain cut, Dane muttered as he looked at the last two hunters. This was the same attack Dane had used in the security room to kill all the paralyzed hunters at once. As Dane disappeared from his spot, multiple cuts appeared on the bodies of the already tired hunters, who tried to defend themselves. But Dane kept changing the direction of his attacks. He drove the sword through the chest of one of the hunters, killing him immediately, then looked at the last hunter who was charging at him. Less than you're finished, right? Greater than. At this moment, Dane heard Tom's voice but didn't reply, focusing instead on the hunter charging at him. He sidestepped once and cut off his arm. Arg! A hunter screamed in pain, but not for long. Dane immediately plunged his sword into the hunter's heart, killing the last one standing. Yeah, Dane replied as he turned, leaving the bloody mess behind him. Standing in the management room, Asher saw various alerts that kept popping up on the screen due to Tom's infiltration into the system. The data piece he had just removed was the security system, customized and applied on the 4th level by the technical team accompanying Louis Rothschild. Seeing no further need for his presence in this room, Asher turned and excited. He was running back to the place where he had left Kai and the security guard's team leader to fight. Damn it, Kai muttered as the man before him dodged his attacks. Ads by Pub Future. In a normal situation, the team leader would have been faster than Kai, but the effects of the drugs had made him a bit sluggish. However, Kai was also not at his best. Although he had enough mana for one last fight, he was trying to conserve it, knowing Louis Rothschild was just behind them. Was he not the one? The team leader thought as he maintained his distance. His initial fear of Kai was fading as he dodged one attack after another. At first, he hesitated a lot about whether to attack Kai, but he tried to face him nevertheless. But now that he was actually facing him, he realized that Kai was not too strong for him. Although his spells were still potent enough to injure him, he could dodge them if he remained careful. Kai knew that the longer he dragged this fight, the more mana he would have to use. Burst Flame, Kai used another spell. The team leader saw various bursts of flame coming his way but kept dodging them one after another. Kai was carefully observing his path and waiting for his opportunity to arrive. He wanted to end this with one single attack, but he wasn't getting the opening. Seeing Kai's labored breathing, the team leader knew that his opponent was not at his peak. So he decided to prolong the fight. He knew he was weakened due to some unknown drug, and his only option was to drag out the fight until he could finally kill his opponent. Boom! After dodging the last burst, some of which grazed his shoulder, Kai was about to attack the team leader with another spell. But he stopped momentarily when he heard a voice through the communication device. Less than keep him occupied, greater than it was Asher's voice directed towards him. Kai immediately switched the way he attacked and raised his hand in the air. Rising flames, he spoke, as flames started appearing on the floor towards the team leader. But the team leader wasn't bothered by the spell. He could easily counter it with his aura. He raised his hammer in the air and slammed it on the ground. Bam! The force of his strike easily quelled the flames, as the two attacks were of different magnitudes. Kai had only used a tier 2 spell, leading the team leader to assume that he was finally in a position to go on the offense. At this moment, Asher had already spread his mana sense and could sense the two rank hunters fighting each other. Asher had taken another path and was now behind the team leader. Asher took a deep breath, controlling his breathing to erase his presence as much as possible. He changed his grip on his sword and used mere steps to get closer to where Kai and the team leader were fighting. It didn't take him long to arrive behind the team leader, who was about to charge towards Kai. However, Asher was not invisible, So he carefully approached the team leader, moving from one point to another without making a sound. This was difficult for him, but his regular practice of the movement technique allowed him to use the burst of mana and move silently simultaneously. The team leader, who was too focused on Kai, didn't sense the small amount of mana behind him. Seeing an opportunity to finish off Kai, he got a bit careless. Due to the effect of Asher's armor and the drug, Asher managed to close the distance between them. What? The team leader sensed a presence behind him, but it was too late. Swift strike, were the last words he heard as a sword slashed through his neck. Thud. The body of the team leader fell to the ground as Asher went over it. Host has gained 20,000 express. Host has leveled up. Kai looked at Asher, breathing heavily. He was about to comment on their situation when they sensed a massive wave of mana from behind them. Immediately, Kai turned in that direction with a worried look on his face. Asher did the same as his indifferent eyes gazed toward the direction where they had trapped Louis Rothschild. Boom! A loud explosion followed the wave of mana. Kai could even feel the vibrations from the explosion. Although he knew what might have happened, he didn't want to believe it. Knowing that Asher had returned, he could guess that Asher had finished taking over the management room or whatever else was needed for Tom to take control of the fourth level. They were so close to escaping the fourth level. He hoped it was something else, but Tom's words confirmed his fear. Less than B boss, Louis Rothschild has headed towards the entrance of the fourth level greater than. Shit, Kai muttered. Instead of chasing them, Louis had gone directly to their only escape point. Open the fourth level entrance the moment you gain control over it, Asher commanded. Less than oh okay greater than. Tom replied, but even Kai could hear the uncertainty in Tom's voice. He, too, harbored similar thoughts. They were fortunate to have trapped Louis Rothschild once, but this time he was certain that such tricks would no longer work. Inside the metal cage a few seconds ago. This is annoying, Louis's impatience was growing. He had hit the metal cage countless times, but he was still trapped. He could have gotten out of the metal cage long ago, but to do so, he needed to use one of his strongest attacks. However, doing so would greatly harm the facility he was sent to protect. He thought about it for a second but arrived at his answer soon. Enough. This damn jamming ray, Louis cursed. Although he was the one who had his team fire it, he now regretted his decision. He didn't think that the intruders would be able to trap him, so he hadn't thought much when he used it. But now, the jamming device's effect was also hindering him. Even though the jamming device was turned off, the jamming ray still lingered in the area, rendering all sorts of artifacts within its range useless. If he could use one of the artifacts he had, getting out of this cage would be easier. Communication with the outside was impossible in the underground facility. James can handle it, Louis had enough as he closed his eyes. Although he feared his brother, he would rather damage the facility a bit than let the intruders escape. The mana around Louis's body started rising as he began floating in the air. The aura around his body got brighter and became concentrated around his fist. The technique Louis was using was part of the combat art of the Rothschild family. Did he give up? Tom thought. Less than cage integrity, 37% greater than. The number was not going down anymore, and seeing this, Tom was a bit relieved. We can do this, Tom assured himself. Contemporary romance. Asher had taken over the management room, and Tom was about to take over the security system soon. Tom started working, but suddenly he got another alert, and his eyes widened. Less than cage destroyed. Security breached greater than. A few seconds ago, Louis Rothschild, floating in the air, opened his eyes as he gathered a large amount of mana around the fist. He raised his fist as he looked at the barrier that was present all over the metal cage. Boom! His fist connected in an instant. Mana sparks appeared as the barrier tried to resist, but the barrier was destroyed instantly, and his fist made a massive hole in the metal cage. He immediately stepped outside the metal cage. Ads by Pub Future. The moment the barrier was broken, the room where the mana crystals were supplying the mana was overloaded, and the crystals broke. Because they were almost fully depleted, a huge wave of mana was sent throughout the fourth and third level instead of an explosion. Louis turned as he disappeared from his position, leaving a dent in the metal floor. He knew the only escape point was the fourth level entrance, and they needed to cross it. And he was right. Asher and Kai needed to escape through that entrance once Tom opened it. Louis already knew the route to the fourth level, so it didn't take him more than 7 seconds to arrive there. Still closed, huh? He looked at the entrance, which was still closed. At this moment, Tom saw the security footage around the entrance, Louis Rothschild, who was standing in front of the fourth level entrance. He immediately contacted Asher and told him about the same. Open the fourth level entrance the moment you gain control over it, Asher said. Hearing his words, Tom reluctantly agreed as he could only do as Asher said. But, unfortunately, he himself didn't know any possible ways to help them in their current situation. Boss, what do we do now? Kai asked as he controlled his breathing. Dane. Asher touched the communication device that was finally working. Less than yes, boss greater than. Attack Louis Rothschild the moment you enter the fourth level, Asher said. Maintain your distance and try to take his attention so we can cross over to the third level. Asher turned and looked at Kai. You can fight one more time, right? Asher asked. I will not be of much help, Kai replied. He knew that overestimating himself in such a situation would harm them later, so he replied honestly. Try your best, Asher said. Less than I will open the entrance in exactly 120 seconds greater than. Let's go, Asher said, and Kai followed him. But he didn't fail to notice that the vibe around Asher had changed a bit. It was similar to what he had sensed the first time he met Asher at the hotel. Asher's eyes went cold as he prepared to confront Louis. It was the only way they could try and escape, and even though they had no chance of beating Louis, they had to escape from here somehow. Louis was standing, waiting for the intruders, as he knew they had to come here. Knowing that one of them had a strange ability to turn invisible, he stood before the fourth level entrance. His eyes were focused, and he had spread his mana sense wide across the room. So you guys are finally coming out. Louis smirked as he sensed the presence of two people. I was growing tired of waiting, Louis said as he stepped down the stairs near the huge locked entrance behind him. It had been more than a minute since Louis had been standing here, and he finally saw the masked intruders once again. I wanted to kill one of you first, but, Louis said as he tilted his head and smiled. I will keep you guys alive, but it will be a bit painful, he said as he cracked his knuckles. The pressure in the air was increasing, but Louis had changed his motives this time. Seeing that they had access to the security of this facility confirmed that they were not alone. He needed both of them for interrogation later. Less than entrance opening greater than. A robotic voice came from behind when Louis turned with a frown on his face. Eyes that they're back up, Louis thought. But he didn't have to guess much when he saw a single swordsman dash towards him. A single man, Louis said as he sidestepped immediately, dodging Dane's strike. He raised his foot as he spun and kicked Dane's body, sending him flying into the wall behind Asher and Kai. Guess 3 will be better than 2, Louis said as he looked at the intruders. At first, he thought there would be more of them, but seeing that only one guy came for them, he became sure he needed to catch them all alive. Damn it, he is strong, Dane said as he got up. He had used his best speed, but seeing that Louis easily dodged his attack made him realize the difference in their strengths. This will be difficult, Dane said as he failed to take Louis's attention and give Asher and Kai enough time to move over to the third level. Try to stay alive, Louis said as he disappeared from his place and appeared before Dane. Louis didn't care if he left them in a half-dead state. As long as they were alive, he could have the answers to his questions. Dane squinted his eyes, dodging Lewis's fist that slammed the ground he was previously standing on. 2 A rankers and 1 below B rank. You guys are too foolish to come here. Louis removed his fist from the ground as he looked at them. Dane's side glanced towards Kai, who nodded back at him. Will of the Flames, come too. Kai started chanting as Louis noticed him. Don't ignore me, bastard, Dane said as he dashed towards Louis, grabbing his attention. He turned his sword to his side as he slashed at Louis. Even though he was weaker than Louis was not at his maximum potential due to the drug. But instead of dodging, Louis charged toward Dane, closing the distance between them. Louis punched Dane in the stomach before Dane could connect his strike, sending him flying again. But this time, Dane thrust his sword into the ground, preventing himself from crashing into the wall. Then, stopping at one spot, he looked at Kai, who had just finished his spell. Flame Carnage, Kai said as multiple chains of flame appeared beside Kai, and he became paler. This was one of the last spells he could conjure right now. Louis looked at various chains approaching him as he dodged the first 3 that went past him and damaged the walls behind him a bit. But even while dodging, he was mindful of all of their movements, which was why Asher was not attempting to go over to the 3rd level. Because the moment he did, Louis would attack him instead of Dane and Kai, and taking even one strike from Louis was enough to severely injure him. Suddenly Dane's attention shifted from Louis as he turned his head to his right and looked at Asher, who was moving towards Louis. He remembered what Asher had told him just before arriving here. Although it didn't make sense to him, he knew he couldn't disobey him. I was thinking of avoiding using that, Asher thought as his indifferent eyes looked at Louis. While Louis dodged the flame chains Kai directed towards him, he saw the 3rd masked person, who wore a necklace around his neck, coming his way. Asher exuded his mana as he dashed toward Louis, who didn't even bother acknowledging his presence. D rank. Is this a joke? Louis thought as he dodged the final flame chain. He saw the D rank hunter advancing towards him and felt annoyed at such a weak person challenging him. Yet, Louis disregarded the D rank hunter, turning his attention to Dane and Kai, the only ones he deemed worthy of caution. Asher knew that Louis Rothschild would dismiss his existence. D rank hunters weren't worth his time. Louis could kill Asher with a single move, so it was apparent he would shift his attention to Dane and Kai until Asher attempted to escape the 4th level. A distance of only 20 meters remained between him and Louis Rothschild as Asher took a deep breath. He was about to unleash his killing intent, but first, there was one more thing he needed. Host has activated time dilation. Everything around Asher slowed down, and Lewis's movement became visible to him. On the verge of dashing towards Dane, Louis stopped immediately as he sensed a tremendous killing intent that shook him internally. He turned to see who it was but saw the same D-rank hunter appearing behind him. Clang. Contemporary romance. What? Louis exclaimed as he blocked the black blade heading for his neck with his forearms. He was shocked by Asher's sudden increase in speed. Unaware of Asher's strength source, Louis immediately created a distance between them. He glanced at the armor on his forearm, which remained unscathed. It was special armor crafted for him, considering Louis preferred close combat battles with his hands. Lewis's blue eyes sought Asher, who had disappeared again from his spot. He looked around him and saw Asher appear in one place after another. What is that movement technique? Louis wondered, scanning his surroundings. Host is using mere steps with time dilation. The fact that Asher was using his unique movement technique in the state equalized his speed with an S+ rank hunter. Louis turned his head to the left as he saw the black blade approaching him. Both of them were fighting so swiftly that Dane and Kai missed some of their actions. How? Kai gazed at Asher in shock. But unlike Kai, Dane recovered from his stupor as he remembered what Asher had told him before they came here. Ads by Pub Future. Hey, let's go, Dane shouted, grabbing Kai, who was too fatigued to move. Dane used all his mana to cross over to the third level for a single burst. Asher had instructed him to take Kai and run towards the third level when he stepped towards Louis. He didn't understand how they would be able to cross over safely, but witnessing it firsthand, he immediately followed Asher's advice. Time had slowed for Asher, and his eyes tracked every movement Louis made. Seeing that Louis had created a distance between them, Asher used mere steps to close the gap. Having battled multiple high-rank hunters, he knew how they executed their attacks. Louis's defense was not a challenge for him. However, despite his speed, the force behind his attacks wasn't enough to kill Louis. Not only was he wearing special armor, but he would cover his body with the aura the moment he perceived the attack could harm him. 15 seconds had already passed for Asher, so he knew he needed to move and cross over to the third level. Asher swung at Louis's right hand but changed his attack midway through, using mere steps to appear on his left. Swift strike, his aura-enveloped sword targeted Louis's neck. Asher's abrupt change in the attack took Louis off guard, but he managed to sense his presence in time and backed away from his attack. He could only detect a single node on Louis' Rothschild, indicating his attacks were insufficient to kill him, but they could still wound him. However, Louis Rothschild was unaware of this. All his attention focused on Asher. Unfortunately, he made the mistake of allowing Dane and Kai to pass through the fourth level entrance. Asher noticed this, and for him, 30 seconds had already passed. Therefore, he had only 20 more to cross the fourth level entrance before time dilation ran out. Earlier, he was merely attacking as a distraction, but now he needed to delay Louis Rothschild for at least a second to make it to the other side where Dane and Kai waited. He amassed the mana around his legs and used mere steps to close the distance towards Louis Rothschild. But this time, Louis Rothschild was ready. He hadn't anticipated Asher's sudden boost earlier, but now he was prepared. And Asher could see that as the single node disappeared, and he had no means of injuring Louis Rothschild now. Louis saw Asher vanish from his spot, got ready, and raised his guard. He was luring Asher to bridge the distance between them. And he achieved his objective when he saw Asher appear on the left side and raise his fist instantly. But Asher saw his strike and used his movement technique again to slip past Louis's strike and appear on his right. He was using all his mana at this point, so it was his final attempt before time dilation ran out. Louis turned his eyes as he saw a black blade heading his way. He twisted his torso and shifted the momentum to his left hand to strike Asher, who was currently on his right side. But noticing Louis's movement, Asher halted his strike midway through as Louis had predicted and backed away from his position. Then, something strange happened, as Louis felt a sword nick his right cheek, leaving a thin cut. Asher saw Louis, who was shocked due to his new sword technique, Phantom Strike. Now, Asher vanished from his spot once again, and Louis instantly raised his guard to counter the next attack. He was puzzled how Asher had managed to hit him even though he had already retreated. But the next moment, he saw that the D-rank masked man was nearing the fourth level entrance. "Stop!" Louis shouted, sending a mana wave to attack Asher with a fist strike. Asher turned his body at the last second, dodging the attack, but part of his mask was destroyed around his eyes. Louis attacked Asher, thinking he was an S rank or higher, but if this attack had hit Asher, he would have died. Some pieces lodged into his face injuring him, but he used his momentum to dash away toward the entrance. Damn it, Louis rushed towards the fourth level entrance and saw Asher's back, closing his distance towards Dane and Kai. Simultaneously, Louis pressed the artifact on his waist that Cumden had personally given him for communication. Time dilation has ended. Asher received the system's notification, feeling a wave of drowsiness wash over him. His face was bleeding due to the mask pieces embedded in his skin. But he didn't care about that at this moment. He exhausted all his mana to reach Dane and Kai, grabbed them, and his necklace began to shine. "Don't move," Asher ordered them. Dane saw Asher clutching both of them by the nape of their necks. But his cold gaze, visible from the broken area of the mask, made it impossible for Dane to question Asher's decision. Now outside the jamming ray's area of effect, Asher could use one of the artifacts he had looted from the vault. Inputting random coordinates. Boom! He saw the system's notification as he turned to see Louis, who had just emerged from the fourth-level entrance behind him. What? Louis halted in his tracks as he saw the broken mask and a single crimson-red eye staring at him. It was the same gaze he hadn't forgotten till now. The gaze that looked down at him when he bowed his head towards the gravel. The same indifferent gaze looking at him. Asher observed the stupefied Louis, who was gazing at him. Louis snapped out of his daze as he dashed towards the same D-rank hunter he had initially ignored. He wanted to confirm his suspicions. His hand was about to grab Asher, but at that moment, all three of them were enveloped in a strange violet light and vanished in front of Louis, who crashed into the wall behind. He immediately got up and looked around, but there was no trace of Asher, Dane, or Kai. He spread his mana around to notice any signs of mana, but there were none. His rage started to boil up as he realized his current situation. Shit! Louis smashed the ground he was standing on.